What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Variant the Podcast. Tim, we got some cool stuff to talk about today. I mean, we always do, but Spider-Man, it's close to my heart. That's what I'm saying.
It's near and dear. Yeah, we got a couple of cool things lined up. We're actually fresh off both of them, but most fresh off of the Ghostbusters movie.
Yes.
And I am stoked to talk about that. So yeah, let's dive into Spider-Man first.
Because that was a big trailer.
Hi everybody.
Yeah, hello.
Greetings, Variant Nation. Welcome to the show.
Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yes.
Second trailer.
It's the final trailer, I believe.
I think so, probably.
Yeah.
It's the last one I'm going to watch, even if it's not.
Yeah, I agree.
But man, there's a lot to unpack here, huh?
They did a good job with it, though.
We're not giving away too much.
Exactly.
They gave us
That's what I mean by that.
They gave us like the right amount because the trailer, we didn't see Tobey Maguire.
Right.
We didn't see Andrew Garfield, so they didn't confirm if they are going to make an appearance in this, them be part of the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
But we got confirmation on a lot of the other things, like Jamie Foxx Electro is in this film.
We got confirmation there.
Yeah, Lizard from The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is in this film. Sandman from Spider-Man 3 is in this film. Like Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe is awesome. We knew he was in the poster, but we got to see him. We heard his voice. Man.
So no surprises.
Yeah.
Just all confirmations. Like Jamie Foxx is the least surprise of them all because they told us very early on pretty much that he was going to be in there. I mean, at least, the rumors were very, very, very strong. So everybody kind of knew just generally that Jamie Foxx was going to be reprising his role as Electro, but they confirmed all of the major villains. However, I will note as we get into it that it seems like they're going the Sinister Six route. But there's one missing villain. Of what we've seen so far, you can only count 5.
Yes.
So you've got Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Sandman, the Lizard, and Electro.
You would think that Venom would be the 6th.
Maybe.
Because at the end of Let There Be Carnage, they showed him being shifted into the MCU universe. With him looking at Tom Holland on the news on the screen. So you would imagine him. But I'm wondering too, I wonder if they're trying to focus everything Spider-Verse, because at the end of the trailer, Doctor Strange says basically, I can't hold them back. They're coming essentially. But it's what if it's bigger than that? Because we know the next movie with Doctor Strange is the Multiverse of Madness, which you'd have to assume this is kicking that off, given that the multiverse is opening up or the Spider-Verse, whatever in this movie. So what if it's bigger than that and it's Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool comes over because we know Disney owns Fox now and Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is now going to be in the MCU. Maybe some Fox X-Men characters or just some cool things from everywhere to be this is all possible now. Kind of like what DC did in the CW Flash episode and what they're doing in the Flashpoint movie or the Solo Flash movie with Keaton Batman, Ben Affleck Batman. Something to that effect where it's just everything's open now. Yeah.
I mean, I think that kind of is, for me at least, that goes without saying. I think they're going to use this movie to kick open a lot of things, or I should say kick the door open further on the multiverse angle. Obviously, with all the villains coming through. The big question mark is what's going on at the end of the trailer, as you just mentioned.
On the Statue of Liberty.
And where he's saying they're coming through and I can't stop them. Who's coming through? What is this that's happening? Is this... we're coming off fresh off the Eternals, where they kicked off this huge celestial storyline, right? And just that was one of the big questions: is how does this feed the rest of what's happening in the MCU? Most notably, how does this, will it affect the Spider-Man movie at all? Will it be tied into it at all? And a lot of one of the things that we kind of, I won't say overlooked, but that after we saw the Eternals and did our review here on the show, one of the things that I saw after the fact was that the director, Chloe, she had mentioned that they used a storyline where Galactus plays a huge role. So Galactus, is this leading to where Galactus ends up fighting alongside the Eternals against the Celestials? And will what we see at the end of the Spider-Man trailer be in any way connected to the whole Celestial storyline that kicked off, or even, the Galactus aspect of that? I don't know. I mean, it's clearly something huge, but I just said to you the other day, I mean, they left a lot off the table as far as what they showed. I was really thankful for that, because while none of us are going to be surprised, or I should say, the very big if. I say very big because it's very likely that we're going to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man in this movie. There's been leaks that pretty much confirm that.
Which is very unfortunate.
Very, very
I almost
unfortunate.
don't want it to be true just because it's like, if it is, it's like, well, it's not nearly as cool because it's like, this is what everyone was expecting.
Yeah, both of us have kind of been lamenting, especially after we saw the Ghostbusters movie. It was like so much. How cool would it have been had no one known that many of these villains were going to appear in this film up until the trailer release?
Yeah.
Right? How cool would it have been if there would have been no leak or rumor at all of, the Spider-Verse, the multiple Spider-Men, and that just appeared on screen? That would have been incredible.
I'm wondering why they couldn't keep things so tight, because they did with Endgame, they did with Infinity War. This is the first MCU movie that's been potentially spoiled this much.
Yeah,
but Ghostbusters is another one where the ending of that, we'll get into that, spoiler alert later, but the ending of that film, that was a huge, if that would have got out, that's a huge freaking spoiler.
Yep.
So it's
Big
like,
time.
I don't get it. I don't get it. That's really
I don't
weird.
either.
It's almost like I feel like they're doing it like it's a misdirect. Because another thing in the trailer,
it's possible.
Another thing, it's actually, I'm sure you've seen this. It was all over the internet. The big thing is in the Brazil version of the trailer. At the end of that trailer, when you see Sandman, Electro, and Lizard jumping towards Tom Holland, you actually see the Lizard get punched by an invisible force. Like,
I didn't see that.
You didn't see that?
No,
that was literally everywhere in the Brazil trailer. Like, literally, not in the American trailer. If you look at it, Lizard is not jumping to Tom Holland. Like, Tom Holland's like up here. Like, he's like, it's almost like, who the freak is he jumping to? Like, he's clearly not leaping towards Tom Holland. Then in the Brazil trailer, you literally see his face get punched and move like to the side. Like, an invisible force is punching him.
Huh.
Like, it is the most blatant. And at first, I thought
it's a speculation.
I thought it was fake, and there was people tweeting to me. I'm like, it's fake, whatever. And then someone was like, no, dude, it's real. It's the Brazil version. Sure enough, like on YouTube, it's on the Brazil Sony Pictures website. It's the actual Brazil cut of the trailer, and it's in there. You can go, anyone can go see it right now. So I'm like, one, either somehow they overlooked that and put it in there, or two, it's on purpose for misdirect. Because clearly, because clearly, if you forgot, then whatever. But I feel like, how can you forget? That's like so blatant, like, because they would obviously erase the other Spider-Man out of there. But I feel like maybe they left it in there to like push that more. I don't know.
I don't know either. But
that's a big oopsie if they like overlook that.
Yeah, because I think because it's Spider-Man. I mean, that was the dramatic effect of that shot, was Spider-Man alone, going right at all of these massive villains.
But even in the main,
I think the likelihood is in that scene, what they omitted from the trailer is it's all three Spider-Man.
Right, they erased especially from that Lizard clip. It's like, well, you just erased one of the Spider-Man, because why would he be getting punched by?
And it's all digital,
air.
So they can do whatever they want.
They did that in the Civil War trailer. Remember when they're charging each other at the airport? They took Spider-Man out of the trailer, and then in the movie we saw him in there. Right. So yeah, they do that all the time.
They also did stuff with the Hulk where they changed it digitally and removed things. So yeah, it's like super easy to do, but. Again, it won't be a surprise for any of us if all three of the Spider-Men end up fighting together in the movie. Unfortunately, it will not be a shock,
which sucks.
So they did a good job of leaving just enough off the out of the trailer to where it's like it wasn't confirmed, so it can still be somewhat exciting when it actually comes to fruition in the film. I should say, if leave some room there for. But the big question mark is what are the things, because like you said and you're kind of alluding to, is like there's a lot of these leaks could be misdirect so that everyone's focusing on these things, because they've been saying over and over again, this is the tip of the iceberg. You guys don't even know. Yeah. Right. So there's more. And I said to you the other day, like, there's gotta be more Marvel characters in this movie, right? That are going to make appearances. I'm wondering, Captain Marvel. Are we going to get some Captain Marvel stuff in this movie where, even the Marvels, because we know that's coming later down the line?
I'm hoping they set up someone like a full misdirect where everyone's like banking on Toby and Andrew Garfield return, where they give us instead like a Miles Morales Spider-Man. Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider. Right. Like something like that where it's the actual Spider-Verse. Like
even more Spider-Man than...
Right. Because we know they already hinted to Miles Morales in Spider-Man Homecoming. Like we see his uncle, the Prowler, in the film. So Miles, he literally says, my nephew. So we know Miles is around.
And that's more than in the range of possibility. They're like, oh yeah, keep talking about Toby and Andrew. And they blow the doors off and it's like 6 different Spider characters.
That'd be crazy.
That appear on screen and they're all battling together. And stuff.
Mean, I would just, as much as I would love to see Andrew and Toby in the film, if they gave me Gwen Stacy, Ghost Spider, and Miles Morales Spider-Man, that would be So much cool.
It would be crazy.
That would be awesome.
That'd be crazy. I just it did a lot of confirming of the villains, but they did a good job of just feeding the hype, which is immense on this movie. Like we were talking about it last night. This is gonna be the first movie since the pandemic began that I is gonna be sold out everywhere. Like packed theaters. People are just cannot wait to get to the theaters
because it's only in theaters. So
it's only in theaters,
and it's like they're pinning it as like an Endgame Infinity War type event.
I know me for one. I cannot wait to be in a theater packed full of fans again, cheering, like just listening to the cheers, the excitement of that environment,
the camaraderie.
Yeah, just all the with your fellow fans, just seeing that for the first time. The big surprises as they hit, everybody just cheering and just that's going to be fun because it's been a long time and I do miss it. I've said it many times. I miss it. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But this trailer definitely fed the hype quite a bit.
Dude, there's a lot of things to speculate too because one of the things I actually tweeted was, I wrote it down here, at the 2-minute and 11-second mark, we see a Green Goblin fly in briefly.
Yes, that's
where
right.
he looks and he's in a different costume and you can't really see him. He's got like a hood on. It's a different glider and he's like different like pumpkin bombs or like razor bats or whatever freak he's using. Right. And I'm like wondering, is it Norman Osborn in a new costume that he just gets throughout the film at some point? Or is it Harry Osborn, Green Goblin? Because we know it's...
if we're getting Andrew...
That's what I'm saying. But which Harry? Because we know Harry in the Raimi film became Green Goblin in Spider-Man 3, where he was on the snowboard glider. Then in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, that universe's Harry also became the Green Goblin. So it's like, is it a Harry Green Goblin or is it just Willem Dafoe in a new costume? Like, for me, if you're doing the Spider-Verse, it would make sense to also bring in a Harry Osborn Green Goblin. That would just make sense to me.
I don't know.
But it's like, and it's like, and they did it.
It makes the most sense.
It makes the most sense. And they did it where Willem Dafoe is, you hear in the trailer, you hear his voice as they show you that image briefly, right? So it's like, is it him? Is it not? Like the trailer doesn't really matter because they mash things together. It's not going to be the true thing.
Yeah, I think it makes the most sense for it to be the Harry Osborn Hobgoblin from Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man movies.
Oh, not freaking James Franco from Spider-Man 3?
It makes most sense to me that if you're going to bring Doc Ock, Sandman, and Green Goblin from Tobey Maguire's universe to have Lizard, Hobgoblin, and Electro from Andrew Garfield. So you've got 3 and 3. And would that complete the Sinister Six? That would be kind of disappointing for me if it was Hobgoblin. It was the 2 goblins.
People are speculating that Ned...
I mean, not disappointing. That's not the right way to say it. That would be very cool. It's just disappointing in the sense that I kind of want another mystery villain. That hasn't been announced.
People are speculating that Ned, as you know, the guy in the chair, Spider-Man's best friend in the film, might become Hobgoblin. Because we know the Hobgoblin in the comics is also named Ned. So are they going to link it? Is one of the Green Goblins or Willem Dafoe Green Goblin going to poison him and he's going to turn evil? That would be a twist, right?
That would be a huge twist.
That would be a big one where it's like, whoa. And we know that the actor who plays Ned actually lost an extreme amount of weight, which could just be like he wanted to get healthy and fit. Or maybe they're like, for this role, he did it on purpose for that reason as well. Like, who knows?
It's interesting.
It just adds to,
There's just so many things.
You use so many theories.
Yeah, it could be so many different things. One of the most interesting parts about this, and I think that's why I'm not really that upset about the leaks. I am, because these things would have been cool, but there's so much room for them to do a lot of things that nobody's really thinking about. Maybe, or being speculated in smaller groups and it's just not widely thought about, that there's going to be surprises in this film, probably a few.
Well, did you notice that the Statue of Liberty in the film was holding the Captain America shield?
I did notice that.
Weird, right?
Very.
I'm wondering what that's all about.
Yeah, it's like, is this an alternate universe of some kind?
I don't know.
Or is it like, because that's at the moment where things are clearly breaking down in a multiversal way.
Well, because there's like scaffolding all around.
Yeah, is this something where it's like things are blending and you're seeing our Statue of Liberty and another one coming through simultaneously?
But it could be like a memorial to Steve Rogers, or maybe even the new, oh my gosh, Falcon Captain America.
I don't know, man. There's so much. The big question for me at the end of this trailer was what's coming through.
For sure.
That was the big question.
Is it Toby?
And what is they and how they're talking? How he's talking about like everybody's got to die. All of Spider-Man's friends have to die.
That was crazy too. That Doctor Strange
and the reenactment of the Gwen Stacy moment
with MJ.
Yeah, with MJ falling.
So I wonder if we're gonna see Kirsten Dunst and stuff as MJ and stuff like
That's
that.
what I'm saying. It's like so many things.
Or Emma Stone as freaking Gwen Stacy.
And how many of these things are just totally for the trailer and they're not even going to be in the movie?
Dude, it's just, there's so many possibilities. Because then you also have, like, where's Vulture? Is Vulture going to pop up? I mean, I guess he's technically incarcerated because you even see him incarcerated in the Morbius trailer. But I don't know where this falls. Could Morbius even make his first appearance in this film?
I don't know.
Because we don't know timelines exactly yet.
And where the Venom whole bit falls.
Venom, like...
I was even speculating, about the Mysterio element. Jake
Gyllenhaal,
is Mysterio, because I personally don't think that he died. That's just my theory, that he's not really dead. Mm-hmm. It was just another illusion of some
Imagine this
illusion.
At the end of the movie, the big twist, it's all a dream.
Oh, God, that would be awful. I certainly hope not.
But yeah, there's lots of cool. And then the Strange suit. Me and you were talking about that. Yes. Spider-Man's got a black suit that looks like it's empowered by Doctor Strange, as he's got the powers around his wrists and stuff like that. And it seems like he's fighting Electro.
Like Doctor Strange Spider-Man.
Dude, which is crazy. So he's got a lot of costumes in this movie too. Yeah. He's got his normal one, he's got that Doctor Strange black looking one, and then there's one that they're calling the integrated one, which is the black and red normal one with the Iron Spider mixed into it, which that's another one, the Iron Spider suits in it.
Right.
So there's like 4 freaking Spider-Man costumes. Yeah. Now, I will say, as a pure Spider-Man fan, that's the one thing I'm kind of like, with the MCU Spider-Man, where like, he's never really a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I know that was like the theme of the first movie and stuff like that. Yeah, but like, how much did we really see that? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like,
they only had a limited amount of time with him, and they knew it.
I mean, Again, I love Tom Holland Spider-Man. He's my favorite live-action Spider-Man. But my one gripe, I guess, would be is like they're kind of just making him like Iron Man, where like all of his suits are super teched out. He's got that black Doctor Strange one. He's got the Iron Spider one. Now he's got the integrated one. It's like, why can't you just wear your red and blue spandex, bro? Like that's swing around, fight normal.
You just wear your spandex, bro? It's true.
But
I mean, me personally, I think they're cool. So
they're cool. It's
a lot of fun.
It's just like, again, this is probably the purest in me, but it's like Spider-Man is more like, again, Stanley created him that way, where he's that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He's a teenager who's just like, he fights fantastic villains and stuff, but part of the cool factor of that is he beats these great villains without having like this awesome iron suit and stuff like that. He just figures it out somehow and gets in trouble along the way. That's part of the fun of the character.
That's true.
But that's me nitpicking. I love the MCU Spider-Man, but that's my one gripe.
Yeah, that's my least concern about this movie. I shouldn't say concern. I just said that's the least thing I'm thinking about in this movie.
It's just with all the different suits that popped out to me. I'm like, dang, this guy's got like, he's literally like Iron Man now. He's got like the Mark this, Mark that, Mark this. He's like got so many freaking spider suits. It's insane.
Maybe that'll happen by the end. Maybe he'll just he'll end up in another universe and
we'll see.
He'll go back to friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Speaking of new suits or redesign, though, before we move on and stuff, we have to talk about the Electro. His redesign is fantastic, he no longer looks like a demonic Smurf.
Dude, I'm so thankful that they addressed that, because it was not good.
I'm wondering how they're going to explain it. Like, is it the same Electro from the Andrew Garfield verse, or is it a different? You know what I mean?
Is it the same one that's kind of evolved over time?
Evolved? Because he's no longer blue.
Right.
He doesn't have that weird computer chip on his temple, which is, thank God, that thing annoyed the crap out of me.
The side-by-side picture is astounding. But, it's like one you can tell is like the Sonyverse versus the MCU got their hands on
where
it.
like they use electricity to make that iconic lightning mask around his face.
Yeah, like the crown.
The crown. It's great. It's freaking great.
Yeah, and it's not identical to comics, but it's really close.
No, it's a great middle ground.
Exactly. They did a great job of mixing the classic comic look and this new like high-tech version of it.
Right, because with the way they did the face and electricity, it's obviously a nod to the original mask from the comic books. And it's like, it's all just meet us in the middle. Meet us in the middle somewhere.
I would guarantee you no one's happier about that than Jamie Foxx.
Dude. Yeah. Oh, he gets redemption. That's right. Because as we know, Amazing Spider-Man 2 wasn't received so well, especially his character. And he's a great actor.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily his fault. So I'm very curious to see with good direction, good script, what kind of Electro we get this time around.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I'm super, super, super excited about this movie like everybody else. I just can't wait. And I think, like you said, I'm done with trailers on this. I don't care what they if they do release anything else. Now I'm gonna just let it rest until we actually get to sit our butt in a seat and watch and see what happens.
They're starting to come through, Tim, and he can't stop them.
Dude, that's the part, man.
That's like
that's the part.
Who's they? Who's they? Yeah. It could be anyone.
Yeah, and it's just like, is he just referring to like the multiverses where the villains came from? And it's all like those multiverses are breaking through and things are like colliding, or are they entities of some kind? And because it has to get stopped or suspended somehow.
But it's also
that's why I'm thinking we're gonna get something like Captain Marvel, or maybe even the Marvels might be a big surprise in the film. Something like that.
You would think, because with this, with the multiverse converging in New York City,
right?
It's like, so none of the other Avengers saw this.
Yeah.
No one's like, hey, maybe we should help the kid out.
Yeah, it was like the events of the Eternals. Like nobody noticed. Nobody. Yeah.
But anyway, Tim, we have to wait until we see the movie, because it's just all like, we go in circles with this stuff because they do it on purpose, because they know it's going to make us mad. Or we're just like, well, is it this? Is it that? Is it this? And they're just laughing behind the scenes. Feige sitting there like,
but they do a really good job.
They do. I'm very excited, and it's fun to make up theories and stuff like that. I'm just curious to see where it lands, because we said it on the last pod. We've been saying it for a while now, that we've been making so many theories, and the fans in general, it's so big and open. It's like, maybe it's not as complicated as we're thinking. Yeah. Maybe it is a little simpler.
Yeah, we got to definitely do better at roping it back. But it is a lot of fun to theorize.
It is a lot of fun.
It's a big part of the fun of the whole thing. So,
speaking of fun, Tim, Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yes, sir.
Ton of fun. We're going to spoil the crap out of this movie, by the way, guys. There's like spoilers galore. So if you haven't seen it, this is your time to bail.
Yeah, this is your moment. Open talk now.
But man, so I'm a massive Ghostbusters fan. Right. I saw those movies when I shouldn't have been allowed to see those movies. Like, I was watching them when I was like, 7, 8. And man, because I grew up with them, I grew up with the first 2 Ghostbusters movie, massive fan of the real Ghostbusters animated series, even the Extreme Ghostbusters animated series from the 90s. I really did Ghostbusters. I had like the Proton Pack, several of the toys when I was a kid. So it's definitely one of my favorite film franchises. So when I heard that they were rebooting it like in the right way, in the sense where it's connected to the original 2 films, and it's not like an Elseworlds type Ghostbusters movie like the previous one, I was very, very happy. And then to learn that the director of the film, Jason Reitman, who's the son of Ivan Reitman, the director of the first 2 Ghostbusters, he was doing it. I'm like,
that was big.
He's literally taking the reins for his dad, and his dad was literally on set with him almost every day. Like, that, like, because you hear like Dan Aykroyd and stuff going on, like Fallon and Kimmel saying that, promoting this movie, and they're like, yeah, it's so surreal for us, because we remember when we were doing the first 2, like Jason was just like this little snot-nosed kid annoying us on set all the time, and now he's the one directing the movie and directing them, taking over for the franchise. But with that said, with the son taking it over, you knew it was in good hands, because he's the son. He grew up on the sets. He grew up with Ghostbusters. This was his dad did. He had his dad right there with him all through the process. And man, you could just tell, like, this was like the perfect like passing of the torch, right? Because the cool thing about this movie is it's a direct sequel many years later. I believe it was like 20 or 30 years later in the film, but a handing off at the same time. But it was done so perfect. I don't remember seeing a film franchise pass on to a new generation so perfectly, because it was like they established and made you love all the new characters in the film a lot, but did it respectfully to the old fans and the old characters, where it's just like, they still matter, they still count. We're handing this over. It's your time now. Yeah, man. It was just done so good. And then we'll get into the ending that's the bow at the end of the movie, the big surprise. But just overall, like Phoebe, the daughter, she's the granddaughter.
Fantastic.
She's the granddaughter of Egon. And she's probably my favorite. Well, as far as the new cast, probably my favorite character in the movie. As far as the new crew, she was amazing, hilarious. That she, really cute. She had that awkwardness that was great. She ends up meeting the kid named Podcast, and they have this cool little friendship and relationship, because they're both kind of awkward, and they become friends because of that, because they can relate to each other. They're kind of both the outcasts. It was just amazing. Paul Rudd, obviously. I mean, it's Paul Rudd. I feel like Paul Rudd's good pretty much everything he does. I'm a big fan of Paul Rudd.
It's Paul Rudd. Yeah. You can just, it's Paul Rudd.
He was Rick Moranis' character in this film. That was his role. He had that kind of role. in this movie.
Less goofy though.
Less goofy, yeah. But his banter with I believe it was Phoebe, right? That was her name.
Phoebe, yeah.
Phoebe, yeah. His banter with her when she's like finds out that he like studies like earthquakes and stuff like that, and he's trying to explain to her how like the Richter scale and all that stuff works, and she's like, "Yeah, I know, I'm not an idiot." Like, but it was just her delivery.
He's talking about like seismology, basically talking about like technical like maps and charts and stuff like that. And she's like, "Yeah, obviously, I'm not an idiot.
I'm a scientist." But and she's like, what, 10 years old? It was just,
but it wasn't. The thing was great about it. She didn't even really say it that snarky. It was just very matter of fact.
Yes. And the whole thing where her older brother, like told her how to like make friends is by telling jokes. Right. So she would just tell like science jokes, but they were like so bad.
So good.
But it made it so good. Yeah. And then just the amount of Easter eggs in this film, like like everything. The fact that they just show as something as little as them opening the glove compartment to the Ecto-1 and a Twinkie falls out. You're like, yes, because people know what that means if you've seen the first two movies. Or going in Egon's flight or jumpsuit, and there's a Nestle's Crunch in the freaking pocket. You're like, yes.
When that happened, both of us went, oh, man.
Because it's the little things like that where if you're a fan of the first two movies, you get those references. Yes. And it's like, yes, that right there is like fan service to the original fans of the franchise. And then just having the original proton packs back, the ghost traps, the PKE meters, the score, Tim.
Yeah, man.
The freaking it was like they just went back to the 80s, did the score in the 80s, then traveled back to the 2000s and placed it into a current movie. Like, identical.
I could not agree more.
Identical. Yeah. It was, and music, and especially for movies, drives the tone of the film, and it just made it that much. How many times did I turn over to you? I'm like, the freaking music. The music.
It was like both of us, like right as the front bumpers come up.
It's crazy.
Like, and the title cards, it was like just the sounds and the score kicks in. You kind of like that right off the bat set the tone, and you knew, like almost immediately let you know you're going back in time.
Because
you're going back to the 80s.
Ghostbusters, much like most, iconic franchises in film, have very distinct sounds and things that make that franchise
without
special.
A doubt, yes.
And Ghostbusters has a very unique, distinct sound and look and stuff like that. And it was just, like you said, it's not even necessarily the music, just the sound effects, the Foley, just everything. It's like, you just know that belongs in a Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah, it was pitch perfect.
Dude, it's like, I was telling you, one of the things I saw Jason Reitman do because he wanted to do everything the way his dad did it. He's like, we have technology to do things easier.
Right.
I don't want to do it that way. I literally want to do this movie the way my dad did it in the 80s. So for the Ghostbusters title, when you see movies like Ghostbusters, Afterlife, obviously you do that in the computer nowadays. You do it digitally. He's like, no. We're going to do this the way my dad did it. So we went back to the archives, because back in the day they would print out the letters and put it like on a light box and actually film it in a studio because they didn't have computers and stuff to do it like that, and film it, and then that would be the title for the movie. So they went back in the archives, he found all the old letters that his dad originally used, set it up in a studio, and filmed it the original way they would do it, just to do it the right way. And that's something like most people won't even notice. Like, you'll be like, oh, that looks awesome, and not know why. But that just shows the amount of love he wanted to put into this movie, that even if you wouldn't notice it, he's like, we're still going to make this movie the way it was made and the way my dad made it, which is, again, it's like, what better hands can you have put this movie in? It was just a fun, it was just a feel-good movie, right? Like, there's some across cheese the board, and stuff, but it was like, it worked, but it was Ghostbusters.
Yeah, it was the right kind, though, because it was a direct correlation with the tone of the original film.
For sure.
So, like, even the corny beats that were like the little dad jokes here and there.
For sure.
It was endearing because it was drawing off of the original films. So it made it all work. And in any other context, you would have been like, eesh. Dude. You might have been like, roll your eyes a little bit. But because you knew what they were doing, it all worked.
Dude, and then going to that further, like, obviously when you would do like a big like monster character CGI, which you do. But again, Reitman's like, no. So when they introduced the Terror Dogs,
they had that.
They had that, obviously. Yeah. But the scenes, like, where he could do a close-up, like, he would use an animatronic where it was like, this is, like, I'm watching Jurassic Park or Ghostbusters, where it's like a puppet animatronic. But again, it's so much like the Star Wars thing when Favreau and Filoni do that with Star Wars.
J.J. Abrams, too.
J.J. Abrams. It works because that's what that world and movie is. So it's like, it's a puppet animatronic, but it works. It makes it feel like I'm watching the original Ghostbusters. Exactly right, and you know, he used puppets or an animatronic several times. Obviously, when it's running through the streets and stuff, you can't. But he did it enough to where it's like, see, that's the original Terror Dog, and so good. He just did that. We can go on and on. I loved it, Tim. I loved it. It was just really good. It was it was like wholesome, kind of. Like, it was just made me feel happy.
Well, it took me back because I said to you right as the movie ended, like the first thing out of my mouth, I think, was that was the most satisfying like movie experience I've had in recent memory as a fan of a franchise.
I agree.
It was because one of the things we talked about numerous times on the show is that a lot of the time when Hollywood resurrects a franchise or tries to turn it, you know, from an animated series to a live action and bring it to the big screen as a franchise, they like to just jump into their own interpretation of this thing, and they too often, not always, but too often, they will kind of leave everything that happened before behind. And they'll just kind of do this whole new thing, and kind of like what happened with the last Ghostbusters film. And I won't get into that because we're not here to knock any other movies. But with the first one of the big complaints, and I'm talking about the last, was it 2017 or whatever it was? One of the things that people most complained about was, and it was one of our bigger, issues with the movie, was that they just acted like the original Ghostbusters movies didn't exist.
It was a complete reboot.
It was a total reboot from top to bottom, and it just left you feeling like, why would you do that after all these years to bring Ghostbusters back? Why not bring it back in a way that tips the hat to the original, stays true to the original tone of the film, of why everyone liked these things in the first place, and then pass the torch off to the new team or the new generation or whatever. And there's a way to do both where you kind of provide that fan service to people that built the franchise, honestly, with their dollar, and then while also passing it off to the new era. So a lot of franchises tend to do that. This movie, however, similarly to what Jurassic World did.
Yes.
Right? Jurassic World also did a really good job of this, I thought. But I think this one even more so.
I would agree with that.
There was so much attention.
This was like a love letter at
the hilt.
Yeah.
To the hilt. Because one of the things we haven't mentioned yet, and again, spoilers for everything on Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Get into that third act reveal?
Yeah, well, but throughout the movie, very early on, I would even say, you realize what the subtitle Afterlife meant. You pretty much figure it out like right out of the gate in the movie when you kind of like the shadow of Egon as he's running around. He's clearly fighting something, right? You don't know what it is yet. And he's going through this, but you see him in shadow. You see silhouettes of him. You see his feet, and he winds up dying, battling a supernatural force of some kind. And you quickly start to realize, when you say Afterlife, the subtitle we're talking about Egon. We're talking about Harold Ramis's character.
Right.
Who Harold Ramis, of course, passed away, sadly, a few years ago and was not able to be a part of this return to the Ghostbusters original world.
Even as a kid, I know everyone loves Venkman and he's a great character, but as a kid, I always, for some reason, liked Egon more. I loved Egon. Egon was your favorite character too?
I wouldn't say he was my favorite. Him and Venkman were my two favorites.
Yeah.
But he was up there with Venkman.
I don't know, for whatever reason, I'm like, Egon's the man. Like, I guess the dry humor, even as a kid, I'm like, it's just really funny.
Yeah. But this movie, you figure out very early on that this entire story is going to be a giant love letter, not just to Ghostbusters and these stories and these characters and the things that were built, but also to Harold Ramis.
Yes.
And his character, Egon, that couldn't be in the movie in the same way the other ones obviously were going to end up appearing. So, but they did it so smart where he is, he's the grandfather. He died. They think he died of a heart attack, but really he died battling this evil force that he moved out to the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma.
They call him the dirt farmer.
Yeah. To prepare for this apocalypse that he knew was coming. Nobody would believe him.
Not even his closest friends.
Right.
Not even the Ghostbusters.
No one.
Yeah.
Even the other Ghostbusters abandoned him, thought he was nuts, the whole deal. And so he goes out there to save the world. And he does it on his own because no one would believe him.
Right.
And so but in the movie, you find out that he had abandoned his family, including his own daughter. Didn't know his family was estranged from his own family. So you're kind of like, oh, don't tell me you're going to make him like a deadbeat dad, right? But they go on to redeem that in a great way. That by the end of the movie, for a Ghostbusters movie, to make you a little teary,
it was crazy. It was crazy.
Like at the end there, but it was so. Between the fan service of Ghostbusters just by itself and just littered from the beginning to the end with just endless nods and throwbacks and tips of the hat to the love letter and the just kind of the thank you basically to Harold Ramis, Egon's his character Egon. Man, it was way more like satisfying than I ever thought it would have been.
Well, it was so fitting too because as far as the real world history of the franchise, that's like Dan Aykroyd's baby first and foremost. But then also Harold Ramis is like the second dude he brought on, who really helped him flesh it out, and it become what we know and love today. So those are like the two guys who are at the helm creatively for the franchise.
And Dan Aykroyd, of course, was back executive producing this, and also writing the story along with Jason.
Which again, it's the whole creative crew.
Ivan Reitman was back producing with his son.
The dad's there, so it's like a family thing now.
So that, like now knowing those things and then seeing the movie, you're like, oh, that makes all the sense. I can't believe that didn't dawn on us.
And I also feel like when the original Ghostbusters show up in the third act, evidently, because obviously, which is another thing, they use the original villain, right? Yeah. They use Gozer. Yeah. And we see the Terror Dogs, and they're kind of like redoing what happened in the first movie while people, the gatekeeper, the keymaster.
And they just expanded on that mythology.
Exactly. They get deeper into it, and that's why I say Paul Rudd is the Rick Moranis character, because he ends up turning into a Terror Dog and stuff like that. Being the keymaster. But when they showed Gozer and they finally showed her, that was another thing, because I was like, okay, you're telling me Olivia Wilde is Gozer and no one freaking knew. No one was talking about it. It was just like, really that's Olivia Wilde. And no one knew that she was cast as Gozer, which is the most iconic Ghostbuster villain. And it just flew under the radar, which going back to earlier, I'm like, that's why I feel like the Spider-Man stuff is on purpose. But I'm just saying, they were able to keep this under wraps, but they weren't able to.
Not to keep poking that bear.
But I was like, that's an awesome, and she was great. Yeah, it was fantastic. Like, she looked freaking scary. But I love the way, that was another thing, even the new costume for Gozer was the same, but different. Like, I liked how in the original costume, it's, she's kind of got like the bubbles or whatever all over it, and now it's kind of like spiky, where it just looks like it evolved a little more, because she's been, well, they say in the movie it's not a he or a she, right? It doesn't have a gender, but Gozer, the entity, has evolved after being trapped under the earth or the supernatural world for all these years, and it kind of just, that little thing in the costume change just worked as well, which was really, really cool. But even the mom, when she became the keymaster, was it keymaster or the gatekeeper? I can't remember which one was which. I think Paul Rudd was the keymaster. But it doesn't matter. They were a Terror Dog.
They were one of those. The mom, Callie, she actually became one of the other. And when she goes up, when the gatekeeper and the keymaster, when they come together, she does that whole thing where she's wearing like regular clothes, and she like rips it off,
and it's Sigourney Weaver's outfit.
Turns into Sigourney Weaver's outfit from the first movie. So good, man.
Again, the fan service was awesome, and then obviously. It's because I want to talk about when the Ghostbusters show up, the original Ghostbusters, because I feel like it was the perfect amount, because they were really only in the movie for 5-10 minutes.
It's a very small amount overall.
But it was done so well, because earlier on, about mid-film, Phoebe calls Dan Aykroyd, who still works at like the Supernatural store, which we see in the original Ghostbusters trilogy, still running that bookstore for the Supernatural, and she's basically calling to be like,
she calls him from prison.
You call from prison. Yeah, it's true. You knew my grandfather. Trying to get more intel, but like the cops like enough time, hangs up, and that's like he's kind of like, whoa, you're the granddaughter of Egon Spengler, like what the heck? Which by the end of the film, obviously he researched, found out what's going on. Him and the other two original Ghostbusters, Venkman and Winston, come to help save the day while they're currently fighting Gozer in the freaking dirt farm of Egon. But like. I told you too, I'm like, those 10 minutes where you see like Venkman, like Bill Murray doing the dialogue, I'm like, it's like they never stopped being these characters. It was identical identical.
So
like
good.
the back and forth, the timing. I'm like, this is just the original Ghostbusters movie. Like everything, the way Winston will like react to like, you know, Vancouver, where he's kind of like the more serious one of the group.
That dude
like,
looks like he's barely aged.
Dude, he's like Paul Rudd. They're stuck in time.
It's unbelievable.
It's freaking insane, but just so good. Dan Aykroyd, just little quips, and then even how like where we ultimately get the reveal where because they're using, you know, the proton pack to blast Gozer. And Phoebe like can't do it. She can't hold it. And you see like a ghost hand help her steady the stream.
Oh.
Camera pans up. It's the ghost of Egon.
So good. Her grandfather,
right. And you're just like, not only did it look fantastic, like it, I don't know how you like, good. I'm like, wait, is Harold still alive somehow?
Yes.
This is really, really weird.
Right.
Because it looked just like him. And they do that, you know, the nod. They finally, you know, once they defeat Gozer, obviously they defeat Gozer. You know, he has a moment with his granddaughter. He has a moment with his daughter, more importantly, where
he reunites.
They reunite. They have closure. They have a hug. But what made it so great is he never spoke. And the way they got all that emotion across just with gestures and, you know, stuff like that without him saying a word and you knowing what's happening, they're getting closure and all that stuff was just, I think it made it hit that much harder.
Yeah.
It was emotional, especially.
It was a touching scene.
It was a really good scene. And even the original Ghostbusters are like, our partner. They're like, sorry, we didn't.
Venkman goes, I thought you might show up.
Yeah, which is so in his character. Yeah. Just everything about that movie, just the 2 post-credit scenes, how they're clearly setting up for this new team of kids to be the new Ghostbusters. I also really loved how Winston, because they all did their own things, right? So like Egon was the crazy one who went off to like fight the impending apocalypse. Raymond Stantz is still running his bookstore. And then you have Venkman is going back teaching again at colleges and stuff like that. And Winston became like a successful businessman.
Right.
He's got like an empire.
Like really wealthy. I'm talking like a billionaire status.
For sure. So he, by the end of the film, which I thought was great, basically buys back the fire because they lost Ghostbusters, lost everything. Right. He like buys back the original firehouse, which was their station and stuff, brings the Ecto one back there with assumingly the kids and everything, and setting up to like fund the new generation of the Ghostbusters. Have one of the OG Ghostbusters now like funding the new generation, which again is like,
and this is like
passing
the
of the post-credit scene, right? It's again a perfect passing of the torch because now you could have them involved in the future movies, or they just could mention them, be like, yeah, Winston is, you know, funded this, or you could have your cake and eat it too now. Which is great.
Jason Reitman nailed it on the head when he said this is the Ghostbusters movie. Or he wanted to set out to make the Ghostbusters movie that Ghostbusters fans have been waiting to see. And he nailed it.
If he doesn't,
absolutely nailed it. They were so smart in just bringing back the entire original team to say, because all this was, it literally felt by the end of the movie, it felt like a giant love letter / thank you to the original creators. And then by the end of the movie, they left a little thread, a connecting thread there with Winston, you know, Ernie Hudson's character, and they set it up perfectly for the next generation now. And so now we move forward, and they can tell whatever stories they want, and they don't have to continue doing all of that stuff. They can tell whatever stories they want because now they've already laid the foundation perfectly.
For sure.
And all the fans of Ghostbusters are going to be thrilled to go along for the ride now.
You know what?
Because you gave them this perfect, like, these guys were awesome. What these guys did made all this possible.
You know what it reminds me of that I'm just kind of thinking of right now and why it probably works so well? It's because we kind of saw this already too in the Extreme Ghostbusters cartoon. In that series, it focuses on a new team of Ghostbusters. Right. But in the series, also, like, Egon and stuff is in there, and it's a passing of the torch thing where, like, they're the OG, but they're passing it on to a new generation. And it's that thing. It's like acknowledging the past is the only reason why we have the present, right? Kind of thing. And it's just, it makes all the sense in the world. Because now, again, in the next movies, they could have, you know, Bill Murray pop in. They could have anytime all these characters pop in and out, or not, because it's already established. And these new characters they established are freaking awesome anyway. I mean, so I'm just curious to see where it goes from here.
I think the one person that we know for sure is going to play a pretty significant role is Winston.
For sure, because he's funding the thing.
Because he's funding everything. So he's going to be around probably the most, which is awesome because I love how they set up his character, like what happened with his character, how he became this really successful business. Like one of the things he says at the end, he's like, I built this enterprise, into a global enterprise. I built this business from the ground up to a global enterprise. He's like, but no matter what, I'll always be a Ghostbuster. Mm-hmm. Like, I just thought that was such a cool. And as he's saying these things, you're seeing the firehouse, and it's intercut with him being at the firehouse and the Ecto-1 pulling into the driveway.
Because that's
into the firehouse, rather.
When he sees how beat up it is at the farm, when he's fighting Ghost, he's like, "What did they do to you, girl?" And then
so good.
It ends with them pulling it in and putting his hand on it, like, "We're gonna fix you up. We're gonna get everything back to where it used to be," which is really, really cool. But he also says he's the sex appeal of the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, because they go down like he's the smart one. He's the He said, "What were you?" Sex appeal. Because let's not forget, Annie Potts reprised her role, Janine, throughout the film. She came in early on, and she popped in several times. She was great coming back.
The only cameo we didn't get that, like, I'm a little bummed out about, but the movie was so good. Slimer. We didn't get one Slimer, at all.
Also, Rick Moranis' character.
Yes, for sure.
That was the other one.
Because Sigourney Weaver made a cameo in in the post credits, which was nice to see her with Venkman.
Very, very good.
Flipped from the first movie, like, what's behind this car? Like that, the shock treatment thing. Really, really, really cool.
But I love that they had it to where Venkman and Dana were still together.
Yes, really, really cool.
Thought that was great.
Cool. But I guess fun fact too. The new ghost in this movie, the new quote-unquote friendly ghost, the Slimer of this movie, Muncher, as he's named, is actually voiced by Josh Gad.
Yes.
Which if you didn't know that, you would never know.
No, you wouldn't.
It sounds, because they, did his voice, they augmented and stuff like that. But I'm like, wow, Josh Gad's everywhere now. Olaf is freaking Muncher. Good for you.
It's because he's a geek like the rest of us, and he just wants to be in all of these things.
He made a call.
This is full on like childhood dreams come true for him. So it's why he did that YouTube series. What was it?
Something at home, where we do all the reunions.
Yeah, like
at
Back
home.
to the Future at home or something like that.
Yeah.
He just did a bunch of those. It was literally him just playing out his childhood fantasies. As a little series.
How do I get to the point where I get on a phone call? I'll be like, yo, I want to be in the Star Wars film. I just want to be a stormtrooper for like one scene. Like,
largely, luck for the most part. Yeah.
But anyway, I think we could both say we love this film.
Absolutely loved it. And I will say, too, one of the smartest things about this movie, and this is going back to my previous point about the through line with Egon's character, I loved, I mentioned that at first I was like, are they going to make him a deadbeat dad? Mm-hmm. I loved how they told you what really happened with him across the entirety of the movie. Like, it just dropped it in pieces, and they let that unfold throughout the movie. But that phone call with Stantz, where Phoebe calls Ray Stantz from the jail because they blew up half the town using the proton pack. He explains, it was just a really smart, it's expositional dialogue, but they did it in a really smart way where they let you know where all the different Ghostbusters were, what happened to each of them, because Phoebe was just asking. She was just like, well, why did he leave my mom? Why did you guys break up? And he just kind of very quickly lets you know where everybody is, and so that it makes everything make sense as they unravel. And there's like this because, they don't do like this big dramatic or horror. Like, one of the things we talked about is like, there's, Egon's spirit is in the old house when they get there. And so like things are moving and nobody reacts. Like, all these characters say they don't believe in ghosts, but then things just start moving on their own. And they're just like, oh, I didn't know that you were here.
How odd.
How strange. Right. And it's like, in normal cases, that would drive me nuts. But because it's Ghostbusters, it's not supposed to be. It's like a family adventure film, basically. So it's not supposed to be like a horror where they're like terrified out of their mind. And the character they build, like Phoebe, to where she's just like, I believe in science. So she's just very straight all the time. Yeah. But as they unraveled it to where they had like the family redemption and kind of the redemptive story, but to where, the mom, she realizes that her father didn't really abandon them. He was basically saving them, just all that. But all of those different scenes and how they unraveled that for me was my favorite part of this movie, was how they used this story to not just give us the great passing of the torch to move on with the Ghostbusters franchise, but also this thank you to Harold Ramis.
Thank you, like a love letter type thing.
It was just really, really well done, and they just wove everything perfectly, I thought.
I like the misdirect, too, where you think, like, he was, like, a jerk at the beginning, or you would assume, like, why the frick did he leave? But they're like, no, he left his family to save the world.
Even Dan Aykroyd, when she calls him, he's like, Egon Spangler can go straight to hell, right? Yeah. But then as the conversation goes, and she's like, he died last week, his whole demeanor changes, and he's just like, oh. And you see, like, he still cared about his friend.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And they just did a really good job of interconnecting everything and kind of touching on all those bases. It was a really, really, really satisfying movie for me.
I can't wait to see it again because, you know, with the movies going to streaming like 45 days after theaters now, I don't have to wait that long to watch it again. So
I'm going to take my kids to go see it.
Are you seeing it in the theater again?
I'm going to go see it probably this weekend.
Yeah, so I want to actually, because I've seen the original 2 Ghostbusters countless times, but now I want to go back again and watch them in order just because.
Well, I'm excited because my kids, they just saw the first 2 for Halloween for the first time. So I'm excited for them because they just saw it, loved especially the second one, and now they're going to see this right after. So that's going to be really fun for them. Because it's very, they did the connective threads are all there, so it's going to be really fun for them.
Well, Tim, we love the movie. What else can we? What else can we say
from there? I have nothing but good. I know I slobbered all over this movie, but again, this was the most as a fan of a franchise. This was one of the most satisfying movies in recent memory for me. It was a really, really fun.
Yeah, it was. No, it was a really, really fun time, and I'm a big Ghostbusters fan. I'm excited for the future now too, with those 2 post-credit scenes. Like, where's it gonna go? All I know is if Jason Reitman doesn't do the sequel, I'll riot. All right, because no, you have to now. You have to.
And I'm wondering, like, too, they did such a good with all these characters that the characters they brought on, the new characters, as you said, they're all great. All the characters are great. And so now I'm wondering, are they gonna continue to use those Spangler's grandkids?
You would have to, right?
You would think so, but they're pretty young. So where do you go from there? Do you bring on more people? Is it more like a Ghostbusters, training camp? Like what?
We'll see.
It'll be fun to see, but man, they nailed it. They did a good job. Thanks, Jason Reitman.
The future looks bright for the Ghostbusters. I'm curious to see because right now as we're shooting this, the movie just came out on a Friday, so I'm very curious to see how it does at the box office because that'll be very telling on whether they're going to greenlight a sequel right away.
I agree. I hope it does gangbusters.
But with that said, guys, that brings our podcast to a close.
Yeah, this was a fun one. Both 2 fun things.
2 fun things.
And I will say, too, in addition to the Spider-Man stuff, we actually are going to be doing a Spider-Man episode here closer to the release of the Spider-Man movie, where we're going to rank all the Spider-Man movies so far that have come out over the years. So we're going to...
That's a fun one. That was a fun one.
That was a very fun one. So be watching for that because that'll land probably the week of Spider-Man's release. So the Monday before Spider-Man drops.
We got lots of Spider-Man themed content coming out that week on the main variant channel as well. Well, especially on the main variant channel.
So the ranking will be here on the podcast. And then on the main channel, we're going to have just Spider-Man content galore.
Yes. But with that said, guys, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.